Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Agency Journey. I'm your host, Kuba Grajcar, and with me on the call today is Marketing Max, serial entrepreneur and growth marketer with a 7-figure agency exit. You may know him as the man behind the Growth Daily Marketing newsletter, read by over 50,000 world-class CEOs, founders, and marketers every day. Or you may know him from his many other ventures, which we might dig into on this episode of Agency Journey. Max, how are you doing today?
I'm doing good. Thank you for having me here, and happy Friday.
Yeah. We're recording this on a Friday. If you're listening on a Friday, that's super special, and happy Friday, or whichever other day of the week you might be listening to this on. Alrighty, Max. So I ask you a bunch of questions kind of relevant for our audience of agency owners, talk marketing, talk newsletters, most likely. But before that, I wanted to ask you a little bit of a question for people to get to know you personally. And the story behind this question is I got asked this on a podcast, and I had what I thought was a very poor answer. And then kind of what I said in response was featured as like the title of the episode, and it apparently was a big hit. So the question, I'm not going to phrase it the exact same way, but what is a dish that you can reliably make and it's always a people pleaser? I think it was something like that. Something that you can, and like for me, I couldn't, like I'm not good at cooking, trying to get better. So it was interesting for me to answer. What is yours?
My friends call me the grill master. I grill everything. I grill 5-6 nights a week. So any thing grill related, throw a nice piece of steak on the grill, have a whole kind of secret sauce about literally making the sauce, marinating it in a baggie in the fridge for 24 hours, how long to cook it on both sides, grilling wings, chicken, salmon, pork chops. I really, really love grilling pork chops actually, and like seasoning them with a very particular thing. So yeah, I'm the grill guy. I can always just rely on any grill, no matter the size, charcoal, wood fired, gas, whatever. I'm the grill guy.
Okay, that's awesome. That's awesome. So I'm about to ask you, like right after this, the traditional agency journey question: what is your number one tip for agency operators? But first, what is your number one tip for grill operators, Max? What's the secret?
Wow, I've never been asked that. And we host a lot of parties here. Obviously, I'm in my backyard, and my grill's right there. But we host a lot of parties, and no one really asks me. Everyone just says like, "Wow, this is amazing, a great job." And I'm not doing that to pat myself on the back, but entrepreneurship is really hard, and so we have to pride ourselves on whatever our talents are. And so sometimes, I got to remind myself I'm really good at grilling. But one grill tip, I guess, would be more salt. Like put salt on the moment you take the meat out of the package, whether you're marinating it, like I said, in a Ziploc bag for 24 hours, for an hour. Put a lot of salt on it. Put more salt on it when you're grilling it on each side, like during the grill, like before you turn it over, put more salt on it, put more salt on the other side. Just more salt brings out the flavor in anything that you could possibly want to grill.
Yeah, I love that. So applicable. And actually, I just had recently an experience like that. I was doing like a vegetarian stir fry, and I was seasoning it, and yeah, I added more salt than usual. And at first, I was like, it's a little bit over. Actually, no, it actually brought out a lot of the flavor. It actually worked. So that totally meshes with my experience as well. And next time I'm grilling, I will remember that. All right, Max. So I want to ask you about kind of your background for you to introduce yourself to the audience. We'll do that next. First, as I teased, the traditional agency journey question. I ask this to everybody, and I'm very curious about your answer. What is your number one tip for agency operators then?
It's a tough question because I have so many. Because over the 5 years when I was running my agency, I just really struggled and hit so many walls. And every time I hit a wall, I found so many ladders to climb over the wall. So I have a lot of different single pieces of advice that I think could change the game for a lot of agencies. But my number one, if I had to choose one, is to read the book Built to Sell, which is the book that changed my life. It's like 200 pages. I read it in a weekend, and I'm the world's slowest reader. But every tip I could possibly give will not be as impactful as reading the book Built to Sell. I would not have been able to exit my agency for what I did. I would have not have been able to reach 7 figures in revenue as fast as I did. once I read the book, like that book completely changed everything. And the whole concept of the book, the model that it preaches, that I implemented into my business, like, you know, a religious person reading some religious text and following the good faith of the Lord or whatever it is.
Okay.
I that book became my Bible, and the strategy or the framework that it preaches is one single service, one single price point, offered over and over and over and over and over again to every single client with the same checklist to deliver. And so before I read that book, I was running kind of a traditional digital marketing agency where if a client said, I want you to run my SEO, if I want you to run my Facebook ads, if I want you to run my whatever, can you do it? And I would just say yes, because I thought more money, the better. And, you know, I can help them and I know how to do it, at least more than they do. So, you know, I just said yes. And I got crazy amounts of scope creep. And it turned out after reading that book, when we did a full deep dive and audit, that we were offering 17 different services.
Mm-hmm.
And so it made it nearly impossible to know what to charge. It made it nearly impossible to bill. It made it impossible to know who to hire next. It made it impossible to do any sort of predicting about, you know, how our revenues can grow and how much cash we need to have in the bank. It made it impossible to grow because we didn't know what product or service to market. We went to the market with a terrible message. And so that book totally changed everything. The framework and everything changed my life. And if you're an agency owner that's like, hey, Max, you know, I do offer one service, like that's not a great tip for me if you're listening to this, still read the book, because a lot of the application of the strategy is very, 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 very important and very, 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 very underrated. So my best piece of advice is to read that book. We can get into more semantics of creating a checklist and a lot of little tricks I have up my sleeve, but that's the best tip I could possibly give. Everything that I can trace back to the success of my agency and scaling my agency as quickly as possible came back to that book. And was rooted in the fundamentals of that strategy that book preaches.
I love that. So you're kind of leading us seamlessly into your story. You mentioned you had 17 different services. So what did you finally kind of lean towards? What was your one thing that you then transitioned towards?
Yeah, so the genesis story, really quick for context, is I was working on Wall Street in New York City at a very small investment bank that doesn't even exist anymore. There was like 30 of us. Now the company's defunct. But I royally failed the Series 7 exam, which all investment bankers need to legally sell securities and grow and build your career, basically. And about 2 weeks afterwards, a client looked at me in the face after a board meeting that we had, or after an investor meeting that we had in a boardroom in New York City, Midtown East. And she said, I want you to run my Facebook ads. I had no experience really running Facebook ads. I was a suit and tie wearing Wall Street kid helping her raise a $5 million Series A investment round. And I said, you know, why do you want me to run your Facebook ads? And she said, well, every agency I hire sucks. And you're a millennial, and I feel like you'd be good at it. Because I just bombed the Series 7, and I had always been interested in marketing and advertising, and I always knew I wanted to be an entrepreneur. I started my first company when I was 16 years old. I always kind of wanted to get back into it. I said, sure. She gave me $2,000 in ad spend. This was 2016, October 2016. She gave me $2,000 in ad spend. I watched a couple of YouTube videos, played around with the ad platform, and within 2 weeks of launching her campaign, I turned her $2,000 into $20,000 in revenue for her business. Immediately hooked on Facebook ads, Google ads, landing page optimization. I just started going down a rabbit hole, buying every book I possibly could about digital marketing and funnels and .com secrets and all of the Russell Brunson stuff, and was immediately obsessed with it. And then to your point about, you know, offering 17 different services, I started signing up other clients at the investment bank. And I was basically like, hey, look, you know, we're helping you raise $5 million or sometimes $50 million investment round. You know, if you have a predictable way to acquire customers at a very low cost to acquire a customer, then it'll be easier for you to raise capital. You know, can you give me, at the time, I was like, can you give me $2,000 a month? And I was only charging $250 for my services. I didn't know what the value of this was. I just was happy to be helping people, and the excitement of turning, you know, $2,000 into 20 grand was so fun. Started signing up more clients. Eventually, over the course of a couple months, raised my rates, quit my career on Wall Street, started, you know, building what would eventually become my agency, right? Hell's Creative. based in Hell's Kitchen, New York. And immediately, because all of these companies were startups, they said, hey, can you help with our pitch deck for the investment round? We want a new logo. Can you help with our SEO? Our investors are really hounding us about SEO, whatever it may be. And so, fast forward like a year and a half later, we weren't doing that much in revenue, and we had 17 different services. We were doing 40 bajillion, it felt like 40 bajillion different things, but we got in a conference room after I read Built to Sell about a year and a half, 2 years into the business. And we wrote down all of our 17 services on a list, and we drew 2 lines next to it, and we made 2 columns next to that list. And we ranked those 17 different services 1 to 17 in 2 different columns. 1, what was the most impactful service that we offered? Because we knew that whatever service made the biggest impact on the business, that client is most likely to stick around for a very long time. We wanted to show ROI. We wanted to make an impact in the business, not just be a nice to have. We didn't want to just be a logo design firm, even though that is the example that they use in Built to Sell. So we numbered 1 to 17, what's the most impactful, highest ROI for our clients? And then we numbered 1 to 17, what is the most profitable for us? What can we charge the most for, but make the least or work on the least amount of hours for? And we spent a good 45 minutes debating. I think this one's 15 or 14, or we spent a good 30, 45 minutes doing that. Felt like an eternity because we really just wanted the answer. And once we finished it, it was very clear that the number one service that we offered out of the 17 that was the highest ROI and the highest margin business, most profitable, was Google Ads. So for 30 seconds, we looked at each other and we're like, are we just going to be a Google Ads only agency? Is that what we're going to be? And we were like, well, let's just think what else we could offer, right? If we wanted to take the Built to Sell playbook and adapt our own slight tweak on it, and we wanted 2 services, is there anything that kind of goes along with that? And we looked at all the other numbers, and the second number for both columns was Facebook ads.
Okay.
So we were like, hey, this makes a whole lot of sense to do Facebook and Google ads, right? Google ads drives a ton of qualified traffic. Facebook retargets that traffic, building up closer to the rule of fifths, right? People need to hear, see your brand 5 times before they even decide if they're going to make a purchase or not. So we thought that made a whole lot of sense. And we thought, hey, at the end of the day, we're driving traffic. We're driving qualified traffic, whether it's coming from Google, whether it's coming from Facebook. We're a traffic agency, more or less. And so that afternoon, I wrote a letter. And if I'm going on too much of a tangent, or if you have other questions, I know we have time stops, so tell me to shut up at any point. But that afternoon, I wrote a letter that basically publicly announced that we were no longer a digital marketing agency, and we are a digital advertising agency, and we only offer 2 services. At the time, I was also very obsessed with the show Mad Men, because our office in New York City, this co-working space that we were renting office space from at our agency, was on Madison Avenue. And so Mad Men,
that's cool.
We were doing advertising. I still liked wearing a suit every once in a while into the office because of my investment banking days, because I spent a ton of money on fancy suits. And I still just like that vibe in New York. And so I was obsessed with Mad Men. And there was an episode in Mad Men where the main ad agency gets fired by their number one client, which was a cigarette brand, Lucky Strike cigarettes, Lucky Strike tobacco. And it was a really big deal because they lost 30% of their billables or some crazy number. And back then, that's how you were legit, right? You were legit on Madison Avenue as a Madison Avenue agency if you had a big cigarette client. That was what made you. And they were fired by, very, very prominent client. And Don Draper, the main character, wrote a letter basically saying why he's quitting tobacco. He himself is going to quit
cigarettes. So that was the inspiration.
Cigarettes. So I spent, this actually took a long time. I spent 45 minutes trying to Google what episode that was. And I tried to find a screenshot of the exact letter, because he basically wrote a letter why I'm quitting tobacco and paid to have it as a full page ad in the New York Times or some big newsletter, fictional. And I ended up finding that. I printed it out at our co-working space, and I went line by line, and I changed it to why we're quitting full service advertising, or full service marketing. And I sent that email to all of our clients, and I said, we're going to refund you last month's retainer or whatever the project is that we're working on, fully refund. That afternoon, we just cold turkey. We were like, okay, starting tomorrow, we're not doing anything else other than Facebook and Google ads. And our business skyrocketed like almost immediately.
Okay, so
So yeah.
I'm curious about one thing.
Yeah.
Like I like to get personally, I'm very interested in like what happens in people's heads at moments like that. I mean, there's business strategy. I understand you were inspired by a book that definitely kind of helped make the decision. But at the end of the day, there must have been a moment where you must have debated this inside of your head. Like what was going through your head, and what made you like what was the kind of thought process that you applied that made you not only do this but do it at so kind of rapidly, with refunds and everything in such a kind of clear cut way? What was happening in your mind?
Two things. One, it had been plus or minus a year and a half of me and my co-founder. I started Hell's Creative with a co-founder. One of my best friends from college worked at a big ad agency, and I convinced him to come join me and start the business. So it had been a year and a half of the two of us working 80-hour weeks, trying to grow a business that offered way too many products, way too many services, making almost no money. I mean, I think we were at the time that I read that book, after a year and a half, we were only at like $20,000 or $25,000 in MRR, and we had two other full-time employees plus ourselves, plus rent.
Mm-hmm.
And we were just looking for a way out. We were just looking for, an answer to how to make more money, make the business more efficient, and make work less, not work 80 hours a week, or at least work 80 hours a week, but not make. I think we were only paying ourselves like $4,000 a month back then. I was making way more than that as an investment banker in New York City, and New York City is very expensive, so we were working 80 hours a week, paying ourselves like $3,500 or $4,000 a month. Like we were just looking for a way out. I actually, I'll never forget this. I remember exactly where I was when I heard about the book. I was visiting my friend for Christmas. I was spent Christmas with my friend, and I was like kind of bored. No offense to the friend. Hopefully you're not listening, John. But I was visiting my friend, and I was just scrolling LinkedIn, and there was an article that was like five books every agency owner needs to read, and this was like the third. And I was like, oh, one day I want a big exit. One day I want like I want to sell my agency. I want to make money. And I didn't even read the synopsis of the book. I just saw it was called Built to Sell, and it was made for agencies. I went on Amazon. I ordered it. I got back to my apartment in New York City 2 days later. I read the book in 3 days, which never happens for me. I don't even really ever read books cover to cover. I read every inch of that book, on a weekend. And I walked in on Monday to the office, and I handed my business partner the book, and I said, I need you to read this. And then, later this week, we're going to have a discussion about it. He read it that night. And then Tuesday morning, or maybe it was Tuesday afternoon. Yeah, Tuesday around lunchtime, we went into conference room B in our co-working space, and we did that exercise, and it changed our business and changed my life. Truly.
Okay. Amazing. So I thought I would fast forward from this point on, because the first thing I want to mention is, from your origin story, you were scrolling LinkedIn, and then you found the book that changed your business forever. So, if any listener is feeling guilty about scrolling LinkedIn, it can help you if you just find the right article at the right time. Like, I can give myself some hard time sometimes about LinkedIn, but it can be inspiring. So I just wanted to draw attention to that detail. And let's fast forward from here, Max. So you mentioned you were dreaming of an exit. Now I know that you're kind of post-exit. And I just wanted to ask about, what, not even maybe necessarily about how the exit happened, but like what are you doing post the exit, and what's the game that you're in right now, and like what's the next kind of mission you're on?
Yeah, well, when I first started the agency, I never thought I would sell it. I wanted to like grow it to a 500 person or 1,000 person massive agency in New York City. I never thought I would sell it. And then very quickly I realized like this is a really tough business. I don't want to be doing this forever. And that was around the time when I saw the book Built to Sell. And so I was like, oh, this could be my path out. This is my way to grow it and then sell it.
Right.
About 3 years after reading that book, implementing the strategy, I ended up buying my business partner out about 6 or 9 months after reading the book and trying that strategy. He wanted to go in different directions. So yeah, about 3 years after, we got to 7 figures in annual revenue, 15 full-time employees. We're finding some pretty crazy success with our clients. And because of 15 million different reasons, I woke up and said, I don't want to do this anymore. And I sold the agency in October of 2021, not really knowing what I was going to do next. But I kind of took some time to work with a few one-on-one consulting clients and just start creating content on Twitter and TikTok as Marketing Max. I just wanted to create content that helped people. Always been really, really, really fascinated with influencers and content and, how easy it is these days to get out in front of people. And, I kind of woke up 6-ish months later around March, April. And I launched a course about marketing because I realized every single person on Twitter and TikTok would DM me the same 15 questions about marketing, basic questions. So I launched a course. Of course, royally failed, totally flopped. I think at the time I had 10,000 Twitter followers and maybe 50,000 TikTok followers, promoted the living daylights out of the course. And I think I got 20 people to buy it. So bad. And I felt so bad because I'm Marketing Max. I should be able to market my course. But
makes sense.
After 3 weeks of promoting it and getting 20 sales and making no money for a month of work or 2 months worth of work, I met with one of my friends and he's like, dude, don't launch a course. You should launch a newsletter. And I was like, ooh, that's what? And he said, with a newsletter, you're reaching your audience more consistently than you are with a tweet or with a TikTok post. You're able to go way more in depth. And you can promote your course every single newsletter send. And people are way more likely to buy a course after reading multiple emails from you than actually, just seeing a tweet and buying it. And you can monetize it by promoting other brands who want to pay you to reach your audience. Literally that afternoon, I bought the domain growthhacksweekly.com. That was my first newsletter. And I came up with that idea just because, every week I would tweet out one growth hack. It was basically a glorified marketing tip. And those would always do really, really, really well on Twitter. They get a lot of likes and retweets. And so I was like, look, I have 30 of those or whatever, 20, 30 of those. I'm going to repurpose those into longer form newsletters and as a weekly send. And I'll send it every Sunday ahead of the week. So you have a tip, a marketing tip to use for the week. And, I grew that business, or I should say I grew that list over the course of the next 3 months to about 10,000 followers in total. At the time, I would get people responding to the email saying, hey, we'd like to sponsor this. And I was like, I don't want your money. I only have 10,000 subscribers. Or at the time, I only had 5,000 subscribers, 6,000 subscribers. I was getting a lot of requests. And once I hit about 12, 13,000 subs, I emailed all the people back who had emailed me, a couple weeks before, a couple months before. And I was like, hey, I'm ready to do some ads in the newsletter. Would you like to buy? They all said yes. Every single one of the 4 or 5 people that emailed me. And 2 of them had crazy success immediately. They wanted to book out the newsletter weeks in advance. And then once the newsletter hit about 15 to 20,000 people, my weekly newsletter was sold out of ad spots, of which we had 3 ad spots every week for 4 months. We were just sold out 4 months in advance. Wow. And it fluctuated between 4 months in advance, 6 months in advance. We were just booked. And I woke up and I realized that this business of running ads in a newsletter is a billboard business. The more billboards you have, the more money you make. You need more inventory because it's booked up 6 months in advance. So I decided I'm going to launch a daily newsletter. We're going to cover marketing news every day. And January 2nd or 3rd of 2023, we launched Growth Daily, which was a daily newsletter. And then over the course of the next year and a half, fast forward to today, we now have 3 different newsletters. More than 100,000 people read our newsletters every single day. We do close to 7 figures in annual revenue across all of our different products that are promoted or sold or monetized via the newsletter, including ads making up a big chunk of that. And I was going to say one other thing. And yeah. Oh, yeah. And we work with major ad partners. That's what I was going to say. So we work with HubSpot, Notion, MailChimp, huge advertisers who want to reach the Marketing Max audience. So, I have more than 200,000 followers and newsletter subscribers across all socials and newsletters, and I'm probably 250 at this point. And so, yeah, the thing that I'm doing now is essentially building a media business, a media brand as Marketing Max or growthdaily.com. And I'm building businesses on the back of the audience so that when we don't sell inventory, we are monetizing those ad spots with our own products or services. That's what I'm up to.
Instead of
I'm building a portfolio. So if I had to summarize it, I'm building a portfolio of marketing software, media, and service businesses on the back of an audience.
That's super interesting. And a few things I wanted to dig into here, but first I just wanted to make it clear clearly for myself. So what I understand is like, if you don't sell an ad spot to somebody who kind of wants to be there, what you do then is you use that ad spot to promote like one of your other businesses that you've got in your portfolio. Did I get that right?
Correct. Yeah. Unless you're the Super Bowl, it's nearly impossible to sell all of your ad spots at full price. So what most newsletters do, or most media businesses do, is they have a handful of affiliate deals where they'll just plug an affiliate offer in, where if someone clicks a page and buys, a product or signs up for a SaaS business, you'll get 10% of the tool that they signed up for. That way they're still monetizing that ad spot in some way, shape, or form. I don't want to do that. I have a strict no affiliate deal or policy. So I take my unsold ad inventory. We have about 8 ad slots to sell every single day. We're not big enough. I don't have the sales team to go sell 8 ad spots a day. So, our unsold inventory is used to promote our other businesses.
Okay. So the question that kind of presses itself on my mind, drills itself into my skull that I wanted to ask you is, well, you're talking about huge numbers when it comes to subscribers. And I think a ton of the people listening to this have an email list, have a newsletter, and want to grow it. So not to ask, too simple of a question, but like you mentioned, for grilling, more salt. And what is the what is the secret sauce for growing a newsletter then? Like, how do you get to those kinds of numbers? Does it come in stages or the particular tactics? Tell me more about that.
Yeah, well, one of the businesses that we promote in the newsletter that's in the portfolio is a business called the Newsletter Team. So I now have a consulting business where we help, I would say more than 50% of our clients are agency owners. We help them grow and monetize their newsletter. And this is like the number one question we get. I always thought it would be content, but the number one question is like, how do I get more clients on flies? Problem with doing this outside. Sorry. How do I get more potential clients on my list? And how do I grow a newsletter? And the answer up until about 2 months ago has always been ads. Run Facebook ads to get people to sign up for a newsletter. It is the fastest way to scale. And if you can figure out that, if I spend $2 to acquire a subscriber and via ads in the newsletter, I'll make back that $2 within 3 months or 6 months, you have a really good business. You don't even need ads, though, to have a solid payback period and track that. So if every month you're spending $5,000 a month to grow your list, and over the course of the first 3 or 4 months, if you can close one new client from those new subscribers every single month, you spend $5,000. Let's say your agency charges $3,000 a month, and the average client's going to stay with you for 6 months. You're gonna make a pretty penny, right? You spend $5,000 and you get one new client, and you get a $3,000 a month retainer client for 6 months. That's a very good ROI. And what we do at the Newsletter Team is we help agency owners, but anyone looking to start a newsletter with their ads. We help them figure out exactly what to send in the newsletter so that people open it. We figure out exactly, or we help you figure out exactly what call to action and what ad inside of your own newsletter to promote your own agency or your own business has the highest converting chance of booking a call with a target client for you. But the reason why I say up until 2 months ago is because I recently stumbled on a new way of growing the list, which is semi-controversial, but it's very legal and it's not any different from cold calling, which is essentially you can scrape an email list from LinkedIn of all of your target clients. You can manually upload that list into your ESP or into your email service provider, wherever you're sending your newsletter from. And you can start sending people the newsletter. And so what we're doing now is we're going and going to various data sources, and we're finding our target clients and our target customers for our own businesses, but also for our advertisers. We're adding those people to the list. And then if they don't have a certain open rate within a week or 2 weeks or 3 weeks, we automatically turn them off or kick them off the list. And if you do it at the right ratios and if you do it at the right time, you won't get any spam complaints, or maybe you'll get one, but it'll be well below Gmail's threshold.
Mm-hmm.
And you're able to grow your list significantly faster at a fraction the cost of running ads than, really not just ads, but any other way you could possibly grow your email list or your newsletter. So we're now starting to offer that as a done for you service now that I've kind of piloted it with my own 3 newsletters and a couple of first clients. We're now starting to offer that as a service where we will actually meet with you to figure out who your target client is. We'll scrape the list for you from LinkedIn. We'll upload it every week into the ESP of your choice. And if you don't know one or have one, we'll set it up for you. And we'll even write the content for you if you want. And we're booking 5 to 10 calls a week with what we call the newsletter funnel. This newsletter funnel, we're booking 5 to 10 calls a week for all of our different clients, more or less, depending on niche, depending on time and ramp period and everything else. We're booking 5 to 10 clients a week. Or calls, I should say, calls a week.
So some people listening to this will be thinking, okay, I want to press the easy button on growing my newsletter. What's the URL for that?
thenewsletterteam.com.
Okay, well, that's nice and simple. Okay, so I just wanted the listeners to know that. I've got one last question before I let you go, Zen. I asked you about growing the newsletter. Now, the last one, and you can go kind of as long or as short as you want here, is I wanted to kind of look at kind of under the hood here at the engine a little bit and ask you about operations. So you're sending, like, from what I'm hearing, multiple newsletters daily. That's like a ton and a half and then some of content. How are you making it all run smoothly? What's the secret?
Yeah, so one thing I want to say really quickly is I'm not here to promote the newsletter team or any one of my services. If you have questions about anything newsletter related or agency related, find me on Twitter, DM me. Or if you want to learn how to do this yourself and upload the list yourself, just DM me on Twitter. I respond to DMs on Twitter normally faster than I do text from my best friends. So DM me on Twitter if you have questions, and I'm more than happy to help you figure this out. But if how to grow the list is the number one question we get from potential clients and clients of the newsletter team. The second question is, how do you produce content? What do you say? And the truth is, content's the easy part. Not even with AI, just content is the easy part. There is a plethora of content in every niche that you could more or less mimic or get inspiration from and have a freelancer for pennies create. That creates just good enough content where people want to and look forward to opening your newsletter every week or every day. So, it seems like a lot. We send a newsletter out every morning at around 8 a.m. EST. And then we send a newsletter out every evening at 7:30 EST. But it doesn't take more than an hour to write each newsletter. It doesn't take more than an hour. In fact, a lot of times it takes 30 or 45 minutes. If you set up your templates properly, and if you follow the framework that I work with my clients on, I call it, you just need to create a coloring book so that either you or the writer that you create just hops in and colors within the lines. If we need to find 4 headlines of industry news, then we need to find 3, TikToks or tweets or blog articles or podcasts that's related to our content, our niche or our service or our clients or whatever. And then we need to write one like tip of the day. That's easy. That's literally a coloring book that you can draw within the lines for. You just know, okay, now I got to go find 3. And the sourcing of that is also very easy. There's like 4 or 5 really easy sources that will help you do that, not even using AI. Like, I found all of this before AI really not existed. I shouldn't say existed, but before anyone of the public got access to ChatGPT, I was able to create a template that myself or my writers could hop in and bang out a newsletter that goes out to 100,000 people that people look forward to reading, that has a really high open rate, where engagement is high and clicks are high and everything else in 30 minutes to an hour. It's very, very, very simple. Similar to the agency game, right? Once you have a process, once you have a system, once you have a checklist, it's literally an assembly line. It's literally McDonald's, right? Freaking, I heard this in the podcast or on another podcast a couple weeks ago, and I've been saying it everywhere. It blows my mind. The average person of someone that works in a McDonald's is like 22 years old. And the average McDonald's store in the world does like $1 to $5 million a year in revenue. And the average age of the manager is like 26. So if a bunch of 20-year-olds can deliver millions of dollars worth of product for something that's more difficult than you think, cooking the patty the right way and making sure that the lettuce is on the thing the right way. If a handful of 20-year-olds can service millions of dollars a year in revenue, your agency can, with very little stress and very little complications, and your newsletter can too. It's just a matter of setting up the right process and systems that I spent, a year and a half perfecting for my newsletter and 5 years perfecting at my agency.
And do you know what I'm going to be thinking about for the next week after recording this episode?
McDonald's.
Well, yes.
I don't eat McDonald's, so I don't. It's kind of gross, but yeah.
Of course, you grill your own stuff. I understand. You can't compare. No, I was going to say coloring.
From the farmer's market.
That's such an interest. Yeah.
Oh, sorry. What did you say? What are you going to think of? What was the last thing?
I'm going to think of coloring books. That's such an interesting mental frame. And that's what I love about these interviews. Is like there's always a kind of a way of looking at things, a perspective, or typically an analogy. I'm all for analogies. And this one was awesome. And I'm so glad you put that in there. And unfortunately, our time is kind of at a close here. So I just wanted to ask you, to let the watchers and listeners know where they can follow you and, connect with more of your content before we close off.
Yeah, if you want to learn more about marketing and get my newsletter, just go to growthdaily.com. Growthdaily.com. We put all of our newsletter content also onto the website. So if you want to check out some recent tips of the day, marketing tips of the day, or some headlines in the marketing industry, definitely check out growthdaily.com. But if you have questions for me specifically about anything we chatted about, agency related, newsletter related, or if you just want to follow along with my journey, Twitter is by far and away the best place to do that. I spend hours of my life every day on Twitter.
And your handle on Twitter is @MarketingMax?
Thank you. Yeah, it's just @MarketingMax.
Okay, gotcha.
I have a very funny Twitter banner in my bio, so go check it out. Pretty fun.
Okay, yeah. Watchers and listeners, go check that out. And if this is your first time listening to Agency Journey, or if you haven't yet, don't forget to subscribe on podcast platforms. We're also on YouTube. So subscribe to ZenPilot on YouTube, and all the Agency Journey episodes live there. Would love to have you as a subscriber. There's a ZenPilot newsletter too. You can find it on zenpilot.com. I hope you subscribe. Run by yours truly, actually. And I'm trying to make it better with every edition. So it's called First Class Operations. ZenPilot.com/newsletter. And be our newest subscriber. Had to drop that in given the topic of the conversation. Max, this was so interesting and informative. And I learned so much from the conversation. Thank you so much for coming on the show.
You got it. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, and thank you, watchers and listeners, and we'll see you, well, at least I will. I'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.
Cheers.